County. This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Her Story, the journey to winning a seat at the table. I'm your host, Mary J. Murray, and this program is a series of conversations with inspirational women in leadership roles. And stories are a tapestry of lifelong events and experiences. So let's explore the journey. My guest today is Aidan Ware, and she is the Director and Chief Curator of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery. And she brings 17 plus years to arts management. And in 2014, she was presented with the Stratford's Women of the Year Award for Arts and Culture. And I must say that Aidan chose the best university. She's a graduate of Guelph. Once again, yay Guelph, and in English and in art history and English. And then she went on to Queen's University for a travel-based arts extensive study program. And she is also a member of the Canadian Art Museum Directors Organization. So welcome, Aidan. I'm really pleased that you have taken the time to spend with us today. We also know that very accomplished women are in leadership roles, but we also know that leadership can emerge at any age and at any stage. And through this program, we're learning that it can take on many forms as well. Aidan's call to action is to work with Indigenous leaders, knowledge keepers, and elders. And this is Aidan's story. Welcome, Aidan, and thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, and I would certainly say, as you kindly mentioned, one of my calls to action is working with Indigenous leaders, elders, knowledge keepers, artists. But working in the arts field, you have many calls to action, and it's really about being within the life of your community and finding ways in which you can support social action for good. I think that's something that art does really, really well, especially contemporary art. So I'm very excited to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Well, we first met when we did an interview with you for Tom Thompson Art Gallery on Grey County Life. And it was at that point you said, yes, I'd like to come on the Her Story show as well. So we're very grateful for that. So let's explore a little bit about your early years in terms of how this sense of creativity sparked in you.
For sure. And I think I would probably start with my experience when I was studying abroad in my first year of university at Herstmonceux Castle in England. This was through grant funds that I received as a result of scholarships through the University of Toronto and Queen's University, the Bader Award. And it was just the most extraordinary experience to be in a place where art is just so much a part of your everyday life. Going to galleries is something you do all of the time. Art really forms the center and the heart of so many places in Europe. So being there, it was a travel-based program. It really inspired that creativity, but also I had a wonderful art history teacher named Daphne, who was just this amazing well of knowledge about art, and she made art just seem so exciting, and how she would tell stories from the past and how artists used their position within politics to make statements about our society. it was really an amazing course, and I think it really set the trajectory for my career in later years because it sparked that deep interest and that abiding love of art history, which became my major in university. So that year, we traveled to all kinds of different countries. We were not just in England, but we went to Scotland, Ireland. I was in Belgium. I was in France and Hungary. It was just this most extraordinary opportunity to be to study firsthand in these incredible art galleries and museums. So that really, for me, was a benchmark for what would later transpire to be my career.
Well, was there a pivotal moment through that journey that just said, okay, this is for me going forward, or was it a gradual procession of gathering knowledge and becoming immersed in it?
Oh, I think I fell in love with art history through this particular teacher that I had. She was so incredible at bringing the narratives of artwork to life. And that for me was the moment when I realized I want to be able to tell those stories and have people feel the way that I feel looking at art. And so that really changed my outlook, and that's when I knew that this was something that would be with me forever. But coming back from England, I carried on with my education and eventually actually transferred to Guelph, where I was able to start working at their public art gallery, which was known as the McDonald Stewart Art Center back then. Now it's the Art Gallery of Guelph. But that was another sort of moment that changed my life, because I think you can study art history, you can make art, but working in an art gallery is actually very different, and it involves many different processes and lots of different administrative skill sets. So having the opportunity to start to work within my field, I realized that this was really something that I was good at and something that I saw my future within. So I would point to that as kind of the next moment in my career in which I realized this was my direction. And again, I had another strong female leadership team there as well. So I think that helped to contribute to it.
Well, I'm very glad that it did, because there are many voices in the art world, and there are critics, and there are supporters, and there are mentors. And at what point did you feel that you actually had a voice? And at what point did you feel that your voice was actually being heard?
And I would definitely say that my time in Guelph was such an important growing and learning experience, and the grounds where that seeded my finding my place and my voice within the industry. I was there for almost 10 years, and that really gave me the opportunity to learn a lot about public art galleries. I fulfilled lots of different roles within that institution. And that is where I really found ways that I could meaningfully contribute to the work that we were doing and to really engage the community. I think that was one skill set that I really brought to that position that I was in at that time. And to make art accessible to a broad range of people, that was really incredible to me. And to see the opportunity for art to impact people's lives in a real way. And I remember I did a project at one time, which was the longest art chain in the world. And I had people literally holding hands wrapped all the way around the building. And it was this idea of this love for art and for our art institutions. And so through projects like that, I really found my voice and I found my place, and I knew that I wanted to inspire people. And I also found within myself leadership capacity, and I loved it.
Oh, well, it sparks a passion that you can see. I can see that coming out in you for sure. One of the things about the Grey Bruce County area is that it's a magnet for artists. I mean, we have such beautiful scenery, such beautiful landscapes within our area, but we also have this very upswell of artists who are gravitating to our communities.
Absolutely. I think that was one of the reasons I was so excited to come back to this area. I mentioned to you before we started on the show that I actually grew up in Meaford and Thornbury. So to be able to go out and experience all the things that I have in the different institutions and fulfill all those different leadership roles, but always my heart being here at home and having the opportunity to come back here was so incredible, not only because I grew up here, but because I know what richness lies here in all of the artists and all of the people and the communities that are so strong, and also in the beautiful natural landscape, which I think inspires people like nothing else, really. That's the legacy of Tom Thompson, isn't it?
It is. Not only did he make this famous for us, but I think that it's also, he is an inspiration for so many people who have gravitated to the art world, whether they appreciate it or whether they become involved in it themselves with actually canvas and tools and paint. One of the things that I value very much about the Tom Thompson Art Gallery, not only is it the collections and the exhibits, but the fact that it is really welcoming to everyone in the community from all walks of life and from all income levels, and that it really has this open door feel to it.
Yes, and that's something that we want to do more of too. We want to be able to make our institution even more porous, and for people to feel that they see themselves reflected in our spaces, and that we're engaging with different groups and actions of diversity and Indigenous reconciliation. We want to create safe spaces for many people, and for everyone to feel that this is their art gallery and that they can come and they can experience something and be part of something, and also be inspired by the work that we're doing. So yes, I think art galleries have really changed even since I started working in them, which I think is important, because what we need institutions to do is so different than what they were, say, doing 20 years ago. And I think they serve a different role now, and we really need them to reflect the communities that they serve and to be about people, because art has always been about people and about reflecting the times and the themes of our times.
Well, I think the leadership aspect to all of this is really important. As you say, that art galleries are evolving and to be more reflective of the citizens in their community and the surrounding areas, the larger surrounding areas, because people travel from art gallery to art gallery because they have maybe slightly different themes to them, or they feature one aspect of art over the other, so that you can have a broad range of interests in art and you can see them in the different galleries. However, the leadership is so important in terms of setting the tone for the community.
I totally agree. Yes, it's so important, and to lead in ways that encourage these sort of acts of diversity, and for people to feel included from all aspects. Like one project that I did in Cambridge was with deaf-blind students, and we often think of the visual arts as visual, but they aren't for everybody. So how can art intersect those that are differently abled? And those are some of the thinking processes that I have. So yes, in a leadership position, you have to look at what you're doing from many different aspects, and and also to understand that your perspective isn't the only one. And to that end, like when I'm working with my team, I often talk about the hierarchy of the team over the individual, because I think it's so important that those structures that we're so used to in our kind of colonial systems, is that, you know, it's so important that we work together collaboratively, and that we are a creative collective in a sense, and we are producing these amazing experiences for people. So I have a little bit of a different approach in terms of my leadership style, but it's something that I find very effective, because as a group, you can accomplish so much more than any one individual ever could. And I think that's how we have the great nations of our world, the great art of our world, all the things that are so amazing and inspiring to us.
So I am going to ask you a personal question here, and that is, in your spare time, what kind of art do you create?
Well, that is a very good question. I really like photography. So for me, that's an important part of my daily life. But also, I'm a writer. I wrote for magazines in the past. I've been an editor as well. And beyond that, it may not be like an art form per se, but I am a yogi for life. So I'm very much into the study of yoga.
Well, I think that as we journey through life, we pick up a lot of different tools. And sometimes those tools may seem random, and they don't necessarily all connect with each other. But then at some point in your life, they all coalesce and they form a picture, and all of those skills seem to just naturally fit into a role or a leadership role that is an opportunity to explore and to achieve. So even though you're talking about photography and you're talking about yoga, you're talking about the natural environment that you grew up in Grey County, and now it is, and the journeys that you've had through the art world, particularly through Europe, all of a sudden they have all come together in this incredible opportunity, and here you are.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a river in a sense, your life. And as you go along, you sort of gather your waters and your experiences, and you flow, and sometimes you bend, and sometimes you are in those rapids that are more challenging. And I think that is the beauty of being in this kind of in this life and in this work, that we are beings that learn and grow, and we have to continue to be open to that and keep that gathering those waters for flowing forward, because that is what life is made of, and that's what gives us our sense of accomplishment and our drive to move forward as well. So you're right, all those pieces, they all contribute to that motion and that forward kind of progression in terms of your career and your life.
So do you have any sort of like words of wisdom that you would like to pass on to our viewers in terms of the journey? If we have a very young budding artist in our community, what would you recommend for them to explore and to chart their path forward?
I think that the thing that I would say to young and emerging artists or curators or anyone kind of in the field, in the artistic world, is really about pursuing your passion. It's so important that you follow that and be tireless about it, because that's what will be rewarding to you in your life. Doing something that doesn't inspire you is very hard to carry on for a long period of time without having negative consequences for you. So it's very much a holistic kind of outlook that you need to fulfill yourself. And so maybe that's leading with your heart a little bit more. And I think that's what I would encourage, is really the pursuit of the things that fulfill you.
I think sometimes with art, people can be critics. If it's not quite exactly what they have envisioned or they lean towards. And so sometimes young people get shut down a little bit because they have heard comments about their work or about their progress that hasn't boosted their souls going forward. So your message of just follow your passion, believe in yourself.
Yes. Well, and let's look at Tom Thompson, because at the time when he was producing his work, he was breaking all of the rules, and people were, you know, what is this? You know, what is this style of painting? It's not exactly, you know, representational. We have to remember that people come to see Tom Thompson now and they admire his work, but it wasn't always that way. And that is the role of contemporary art. It challenges us, and that is so important. And for young and emerging voices to be challenging us, especially in this time, is deeply important to our society.
And so you're encouraging them to go forward regardless.
Yes.
Just follow your passion, believe in yourself, keep going forward, and there may be grand results while you're still alive, and maybe you have to wait until afterwards.
Yes, it's very much about living that fulfillment within yourself, because ultimately the only expectations for you are those that are within your heart. And not following those, as I mentioned, has poor consequences for you in your life. So to reach that fulfillment, we have to be committed. And sometimes that's challenging and it's hard, but it is rewarding.
Well, I think filling your soul and it is very important. But I do have a little quote here. Not only is it an honor to return to my roots in Meaford in Grey County, to lead this important public art gallery, but another quote that I have here is that creativity forms the foundation of a thriving and strong community. And I think that's what we're building here with the Tom Thompson Art Gallery, the foundation of a thriving and vibrant community.
I couldn't agree more. The Tom has always been at the center, in the heart of Owen Sound for me. I've been coming to this gallery for, you know, almost my entire life, really. So, you know, I know what it means to this region, and I know that there are so many artists here, and we have the artist co-op and many artist studios and theaters and music festivals. That art is everywhere in and around Owen Sound. So I'm just thrilled to be in this position and be a part of that momentum, which just keeps growing, and it's getting bigger, and it's sweeping us all up, which is wonderful.
Well, it's great to be in a community that values art and artists and creativity the way it does in our Grey and Bruce counties. But there's a couple of things, because being the curator and director and of an art gallery is a very challenging job to start with. But there are moments when you step aside from that, explore nature. As you said, you're involved in yoga. But what is it that actually brings you joy in your life?
I think what brings joy in my life is feeling successful in the things that I do through my work, and finding appreciation in the moment. And I think that's what yoga has really taught me, is to, in each moment, find that place where we see something or can feel something of joy. And sometimes we're reminded of that cliche that life is so precious, but it is, and the pandemic has really brought that to light, and how important our families and our friends and our societies and our communities are. And that appreciation is what gives me joy.
Do you have a little phrase that rolls around in your head that propels you through the day?
I don't have one particular phrase that I can think of, but I do read the Yoga Sutras quite a bit, so I take a lot of my philosophy from that, and I often think about this idea of the strength of the heart, I guess, and that for me, and yoga talks a lot about like opening up your heart, and whether that's through your physical body, and it's also a metaphor for your life and how you can live your life as an open person. And we need so much more of that in this day and age, with so many screens and so many ways that people are being shielded from each other emotionally. So yeah, I think that's my philosophy. It's sort of a broader series of things that I think about, perhaps, than just one phrase in particular.
Well, I really latched on to the phrase to open up your heart. And I think that that's one of the messages that I think is so important, particularly through this pandemic, is when you open up your heart is to always be kind. And I think that can only enhance our community as we manage our way through the pandemic and the challenges that we have with isolation. And so I like that phrase, open your heart. So I'm going to hang on to that one.
That sounds good.
So we're sort of coming to the end, and we're going to be wrapping up. But is there anything that you would like to just tell us at this moment about going forward to keep us all going?
I would love to just say that I think that so much, I'm so grateful for all the women that have been in my life and inspirations in my career. I've worked under some really incredibly inspiring women, and I think that there's so much opportunity for us. And I just really encourage people to follow, what drives them, explore that, and really find inspiration within that, because that's where you will be successful and feel rewarded.
Well, Aidan, thank you so much for being our guest today. And join us next time for her story, The Journey to Winning a Seat at the Table, for another inspirational story.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Are you the type who would keep going or stop? It's not easy to stop when you have an addiction. Legalizing cannabis won't stop addiction. It trivializes its consumption. Let's be vigilant. If you need help, visit portage.ca.
Newly single, professional photographer, used to be fun.
Punky Brewster is putting her own spin on being a grown-up.
There's a little girl that needs a place to stay while Cherry finds her a home.